live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my counterpart and co-host, Joe DeLeone. Good evening. Good, sir. How are you?
Blake, I can't believe we made it this far. I'm like, I feel like it was week one yesterday. And today we're going to talk about Florida State firing its coaches. And at week one, we thought that Florida State was going to be a playoff team. I'm just so excited for championship weekend. I don't know about you. I think we're going to have so much good football. It's nice to just be able to sit and watch one game at a time. But this is going to be an awesome week, man. I'm juiced up.
Yeah, I mean, look, Joe, to be real with you, it's starting to get real now, right? I mean, for some, the reality has set in on what the season actually was. We got a lot that we're going to talk about. Obviously, after the games are played on the field, we got a bigger reality that we got to react to on a Sunday, especially about the college football playoff and where things are going to be seated. Joe, there's a lot of movement. Is Alabama going to get in here? And, Joe, there's a lot of people banging on the table for South Carolina. So, again, regardless how all of that goes down, we will be here for it and for you on Ruffino and Joe's show. But, Joe, it is championship week. We are going to preview these games. But you know what comes in the beginning of December, though, don't you?
Chaos. All of the freaking chaos.
All of the coaching carousel, all of the portal rumors, and today it finally opened. So we'll get to a couple of portal, but we need to get to some of these coaching things too, and out of the way before we get rolling into the games here. Joe, was announced this morning that by Brett McMurphy of the Action Network that Sam Pittman, the head coach of Arkansas, is going to be remaining as the head coach. Your thoughts on Sam staying on as the head coach?
I know this sounds a little funky, or not even funky. It sounds insane to say for how mediocre Arkansas was and inconsistent they were. If we just look at their just general record, to say that he earned it, but he did. Arkansas had a difficult schedule. They had a lot of difficult matchups. We discussed in the preseason that if Arkansas finished in the middle of the pack around that 6-6 number, that Sam Pittman would have done enough to save himself and give himself a little bit of a cushion. And he did exactly that. The Tennessee victory, I think, is where Sam Pittman can point to and can point for the administration and say, look, things didn't go the way that we wanted to. We should have beat Oklahoma State. We should have finished in some of these games that we had. But with how good the SEC is this season, we pull out this upset against Tennessee. We've got athletes. Keep Taylor Green on board. We could be more competitive next year. So I think that Pittman earned it, but we just got to recognize what the expectations are for an Arkansas job like this.
Well, hold on.
Okay.
There's two schools of thought for me on this.
Okay.
As a human being, you're right. As a non-fan of Arkansas, you're right. Right? Like, I think he earned it. I think it was a lot to come back from. They necessarily haven't given him the resources maybe from an NIL perspective than they've given other coaches. All right. Joe, historically, Ole Miss and South Carolina have no business going light years ahead of Arkansas when it comes to what they're doing in football.
Don't disagree.
Arkansas, for what it's worth, has a crap load of money. If they wanted to spend money in NIL and be good as a football program, they could do it. They went and do it. They do it in baseball. They do it in basketball. I got to be real with you, man. If I'm an Arkansas fan today, I'm a little pissed because it's just you're throwing me another season of 6-6. Joe, the last time that they won 10 games was 2012. Like, I mean, that's not the Arkansas football that I grew up with. The Arkansas football that I grew up with, Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, Peyton Hillis, Matt Jones, Ryan Mallett, for crying out loud.
Well, you've got the guy in the building who orchestrated that.
No. Houston Nutt was there for most of that.
Oh, I thought that Petrino. Okay.
Well, Petrino was there in like 11 and stuff like that. So, yeah, you're right. But Houston Nutt kind of started it, and then Petrino did. You're right. He kind of orchestrated that. But the problem is for me, I'm like, brother, Ole Miss does not have more money than us. They don't. And I'm supposed to sit out here with all my Tyson Dino chicken nuggets and my 4 kids and say to myself that we're not supposed – football is what we want to be good in too. And look, I love it for Sam. I hope that they can change some things. Maybe Taylon Green with some more pieces, maybe they get better. I like it for Sam. I think Sam's a great human being. But where are you going? Where are you going? Because, Joe, nowhere else in the SEC is this allowed. Good people don't get fired. They don't. And Sam is a good dude. The bottom line is here, though, if Arkansas wants to get back to some form of relevancy, they got to attack the portal and get dudes in there. They're lacking dudes.
That is okay. First of all, that's the most blatant part of this. Yeah, they need receivers. They need to.
They need O-line. They need O-line.
They need to refuel a D-line too. Biggest part though is they need receivers. They need someone for
DBs.
Secondary's
ass.
They need to spend the money in the offseason. I agree with that. I am conflicted though for what you just said because you bring up a strong point. I think it's worth recognizing in a year in the expanded version of the SEC that 6-6 is better than what everybody expected. Everybody thought that Arkansas was going to be as bad as Kentucky was this year. Everyone thought that they were going to go 4-8 and that they were going to suck ass. They weren't going to be competitive.
That's what she said.
Minus like the Ole Miss game where they got blasted 63-31. They were competitive in every game that they were. I know it feels really defeatist to say that now that the more that I say it out loud, I'm like, really, that is kind of lame.
Where are we going?
But here's the question I ask you though: is like, who are you going? You're Arkansas. Who are you going to go out and get?
It's a very hard argument to sell when Coach Calipari just came here. And by the way, hold on. By the way, well, Joe, they spent $22 million in a buyout to get a basketball coach.
Unless they were going to go get Ryan. Maybe you're right. They should have tried to go get Ryan Day. They should have tried it. They should have pulled the football Calipari.
It's not even about that. It's not even about the coach. You're not giving Sam, let's call it what it is, you're not putting the effort that you need to put in it to be where you want to be. Joe, no one's asking them to go 10-2 every year. But, Joe, you're talking about 12 years that they haven't had a 10-win season. That is abysmal.
Here's the only thing, though, is that in the modern version of the SEC with Oklahoma and Texas in the mix,
Arkansas can spin with the best of them. Don't you think for 1 second that they can't strike a check Walmart and Tyson Chicken?
Here's the only
Walmart.
Wait. So his thanks for repeating Walmart.
I mean, it's just like, you had the biggest booster in college football boosters history, maybe outside of Tim Cook.
It looks like I'm trying to find his freaking buyout.
Whose?
Pittman's.
Who cares?
If he is fired, $12 million is what his buyout is.
Who gives a Rudy Poo?
Yeah, but maybe that philosophy is if we're gonna fire him, why don't we wait? Oh God, it is kind of a shitty. I just personally don't know, considering that Sam Pittman was who they hired the first time. They went and hired an offensive line coach. They could They could have got
Ed Orgeron their way into wins.
If they were going to hire a premier coach and had this expectation to be, let's say, 8-4, 9-3, if that was the expectation, they would have been more aggressive the first time. I just think that like the expectation from the administration is a lot lower than what it used to be, which sucks.
It's very difficult. The last thing I said, we got to move on quickly here. Okay. Last thing I'd say, it's very tough for an Arkansas fan to hear what you're saying when Ole Miss and Arkansas, Ole Miss and South Carolina, who don't have more money than them, did what they needed to do to get to those 9 and 10 win seasons. That's the problem that they have at the current moment, and I got to be real with you. I don't blame them. All right. Florida State making some moves here as they fired both of their coordinators, and now they're bringing in Gus Malzahn from UCF, the former UCF head coach and Auburn head coach, is now the offensive coordinator. Joe, and Tony White from Nebraska is going to be their new DC. Your thoughts on both of these hires?
I'm not really fully all in on the Gus Malzahn hire, and it's what we just saw with Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly comes in, it's literally the same move. Chip Kelly comes in to Ohio State, and their offense is very productive and it's super potent, but it felt like Ohio State's offense at times didn't really reach that upper echelon in their biggest matchups. They just didn't. The Michigan game is an example of that. I feel really odd going and pulling a sitting head coach to do this coordinator thing. I'm not for it. I need to see more examples of when it works because, frankly, I don't think that it does. I really don't. It just feels like a really awkward spot to have a guy who was a former head coach join the staff. It is a sport where coaching staffs crumble when there are all these big personalities in a room, and Malzahn is one of them. So I don't know if from a dynamic standpoint, if that's going to work, but he's a brilliant offensive mind. I mean, he has been one of the most productive play callers, orchestrators of offenses in the sport in the last 20 years. So the dividends could be paid. Here's the biggest part though, Blake. They need to go stupid on whoever they go and get at quarterback. Like the Cromanoke seems fine, but he's not ready to start next year. Brock Glenn's definitely not the guy. They need to bring in like a dude. They need to bring in a dude because Malzahn has not resolved the issues that you had at quarterback with the poor play that you were getting from the guys that you had in the room. So this is something that to assume that Malzahn fixes everything would be a misconception of the situation.
Well, I don't think you can ask. I think it's very wrong to ask him to do that.
Yeah, that's my point.
I mean, you're talking about a 2-10 football team, Joe. I mean, like if they go 6-6 next year, based off of what's happened here, they're not recruiting well in the portal. I mean, in high school recruiting, they're having to go in the portal and get all these guys. They don't have a strong foundation. Listen, here's the truth. It's a full-on rebuild now. I mean, Joe, they're 2-10. Like, I mean, there's no stopgap. I mean, Billy Napier pretty much took their entire class. So, I mean, listen, Joe, I'm not grading. I need to see improvement from them. Improvement. And listen, I get what I actually 1,000% agree with you on the Malzahn thing. But, man, I got to be real with you. Mike kind of maybe does need somebody to help him be there. Somebody that's been in the trenches with him. And listen,
yeah,
I got to be real. Like everybody says the Chip Kelly thing didn't work at Ohio State. Okay, hold on. That can be fair in premise. Ryan Day was having these issues before Chip Kelly got there. Like it wasn't a Chip Kelly thing. I mean,
but that's what I'm saying is it didn't resolve all problems.
Well, it's not on him. It's not on him to resolve every issue. That it's on the head coach to resolve these issues. It's not going to be on Gus. It was never on Chip. Chip is there to call plays. And to be real with you, here's the truth. You didn't recruit well enough, okay, if you're Ohio State, to get to line up on 3rd and 1 and run the football. It's the same here. Same thing here with Florida State. Guys, Florida State fans think I hated him. I don't. We told you in the beginning when you went and got DJU that you're misevaluating dudes. You went and got a plethora of guys from Alabama that, quite honestly, weren't good in the SEC.
Well, none of them contributed at all either.
None of them. And now you're going to have to go back in the portal and do it. Joe, here's the truth. I don't mind Gus from an X's and O's standpoint. Really, I don't. If he doesn't have a quarterback that can move and he doesn't have decent O-line play, you're going to be in trouble. Now, Tony White from Nebraska, Joe, I do like the hire.
I like this.
Physical. And look, man, they've been really tough and physical all year in the Big Ten. Now coming to the ACC, just how quickly can Tony White change some things is going to be the question here.
Yeah, I'm high on this hire because there weren't really many premier athletes on this Nebraska defense. And the thing that we talk about every single week that kept them in football games was the physicality that they were playing with on defense. And just plain and simple, like what we're talking about here is what Florida State, what did them in. They had a bunch of soft dudes that every time you turn on the tape were not giving full effort. A bunch of guys that were not ready to play with a violent presence the minute that the ball was snapped. You know what I would do if I'm evaluating? I'm looking around the country like, who do I want to be my next defensive coordinator? I'm going to pick a team from the Midwest that loves to hit people, That was what made Nebraska so good. They just love to hit people. So I'm for it. I think that this one's gonna. I think that this is the best move of the two, and I'm kind of wait to see what happens with Malzahn.
Well, more than anything, you need two coordinators that can come in and change the culture. And can Tony White and Gus Malzahn do that? It's going to be the ultimate question. All right. Joe, the last and final coaching move that we'll talk about, at least here today, and I'm sure there will be others, but Ben Arbuckle, the offensive coordinator from Washington State, is heading down to Oklahoma. Now, his quarterback,
John Mateer.
Yeah, right. Mateer also hit the portal today. Joe, I got to be real with you. I thought Oklahoma, this is one of the sneakiest hires that you could have made. A top 30 offense. Washington State was 27th in the country in total offense. Your thoughts on Brent Venables' move? And by the way, basically a day and a half after you lose to LSU to wrap up the regular season.
Yeah, I think that this is a very aggressive and creative move. And it kind of reminds me of the Andy Kotelnicki hire that we saw from Penn State, not from the terms of scheme, but just in terms of premise, because Kotelnicki was at Buffalo. He was a riser. He goes to Kansas. He does so many great things in a bigger spotlight. And then he comes to Penn State and really revamped an offense that badly needed creativity. And that's what you're getting with Arbuckle, who comes from Western Kentucky in 2022. He was the man leading an offense that was ridiculously productive. And he was able to get great production out of Cam Ward and even better production out of John Mateer. This past season, they put up a shitload of yards, especially throwing the ball through the air, that they were averaging 268 per game, 9 yards per attempt. This is the identity that Oklahoma's played with. You're not going to suddenly start running the football at Oklahoma. You're not going to say we're going to run Michigan's offense and we're going to go 2 tight ends and under center and focus that way. Getting somebody who wants to be aggressive through the air and airing things out, it's the way to go.
So I think for me, if I'm Oklahoma, I'm like, so do we have a quarterback now too? And what happens with Jackson Arnold? So Mateer, man, I think more than anything, look, he ran for 826 yards and 15 touchdowns. I know that the schedule's not the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
Joe, the biggest thing with Arbuckle that I'm really interested to see, okay, they had a lot of balance this year running the football too. I mean, look, they ran for 170 yards per game, 171.6 if we want to be exact, on 36 attempts. They were actually running the ball more this year than they had done in the past, obviously with Cam Ward, that coming off of the style and presence of Mateer. I think that in the SEC, teams that can play good defense, Oklahoma's got that. I mean, it's not like that they're bad and hurting defensively. And a team that can run the football can win football games. Now, Mateer's, if he does come in, there's going to be critical third down situations that he's got to convert. I think it's a really good hire by Brent Venables.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always interested with guys that don't necessarily have historic SEC ties. Joe, historically, I'm not saying it's happening here.
Yeah.
Because I've literally seen Denbrock do it. I mean, he didn't have SEC ties. He did it last year with the best overall offense. How does it translate? And that's going to be the question. But if you get Mateer and you get Arbuckle to come in here, you're an O-line away, man. Now, you got to get some receivers. You got to get some playmakers. But you can start rebuilding this offense and start building yourself into the SEC.
Just a follow-up point before we jump in and hit the break here. Understandable on your SEC point, but the thing that I would counter with that I think helps him, he played college football in Texas. He was a part of the Houston Baptist coaching staff. He was born in Texas. So being from the just general region down there.
You know what I meant by SEC.
Right. No, I know. It's not me correcting you. It's you just me providing, he might not have coached in the SEC, but he at least has been around the area. It's not like we're pulling a dude that's from Washington and he doesn't know what it's like.
Fair, very fair. And look, what we're going to find out here, okay? We're going to find out. Look, I think Oklahoma is a couple of seasons away, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
Getting a very close-up look at them this week, look, man, that O-line's very bad. And I don't see a world where it starts getting better here. Look, man, Jackson Arnold, I said the same thing about Haynes King yesterday on the show. Say the same thing about Jackson Arnold. Joe, I have no idea if Jackson Arnold gets a fair shake about how bad things were. I really don't. No. Like, I saw the dude make some insane throws Saturday. I'm like, bro, that's a 5-star throw, man. Like, that's an NFL throw, okay? But I mean, we'll have to wait and see. Maybe Jackson Arnold does say. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Since we're on the coaching thing here, Cody sends a $5 super chat in. Says thoughts on the rumors of Marcus Freeman being the next head coach of the Bears because of the president of the Bears. Your thoughts on Marcus Freeman rumors?
It's annoying that like suddenly Marcus Freeman things are going well, and then now he is being brought up into the conversation. Look, we're all smart enough to know that when an NFL opportunity is being brought up for a coach, it's usually posturing to try and get more
it's
an extension.
Right.
Well, it's not up for him to get an extension because he's got a 6-year deal. He's 3 years into the deal, but I'm sure that he's trying to look for long-term security.
Well, hold on. Coaches and agents always want 4-year deals because of recruiting. So, to your point, it's it's extension time for him.
And probably wants more money. That's how I would read into it. I don't think he fits in the NFL, if I'm being completely honest. And he even literally said this. Like, it's one of the few times where, like, you'll hear coaches respond to this and they'll go, yeah, I'm not buying. I'm focused on this right now. He literally said, I don't know what it entails to coach in the NFL. And he's very blunt about it. I don't think that it's a fit. He doesn't really have a coaching background in the NFL. He's too young and has been coaching for a very brief period of time at Notre Dame. I don't think he's ready to coach in the NFL. I think Marcus Freeman's
ready to coach at Notre Dame either.
Right. And we're seeing how he's learning on the job still, and there's been improvements, but I don't think he leaves, and that's good for Notre Dame, that if he does stick around and he continues to improve, that they're not going to lose him, right as things were starting to get better.
I'm just going to say this. You NFL Rudy Poos are going to hate me for it. I could give 2 Rudy Poos. First off, Notre Dame in and of itself is a better coaching job than being the head coach of the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, I agree with that. I wouldn't want the
So a
10-year deal at Notre Dame is better than any contract you're going to get to coach.
Well, I mean, Notre Dame fans think I hate them. I mean, but the truth is, there's no better head coaching spot than being the head coach of Notre Dame than being the head coach for the Chicago Bears. Now, I will say this. In no way humanly possible am I tying my job status to Caleb Williams.
That part I don't agree with.
Okay, well, you're going to be fired, and you're going to continue to paint he's going to continue to paint his nails, and y'all are going to be all out of a job. It's exactly what's going to happen. They should have drafted Jaden Daniels, and you were all wrong, and I told you so.
It's been 1 year. We can't make that assessment.
I guarantee you every single penny in my bank account that Jaden Daniels is going to be a better overall pro and quarterback than he ever will be.
Don't do this to me. Don't do this to me.
He will, and that's why you wore a stupid hat all season.
He got drafted high. That doesn't apply to the
I don't.
All right, we got a games to preview. We're not here to talk NFL. We got games to preview.
Talk about our good friends over at betonline.ag. When we come back, we break down conference championship games next. Stay with us. Oh, by the way, hit the like and share. Don't be a Rudy Poo.
Hell yeah.
Hit the like and share during that as well. We'll greatly appreciate it. Like, share, notification bell, all that good stuff. Please subscribe if you're on YouTube. Stay with us. We're right back. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way for you to wager on all of your favorite sports, contests, events with the first-to-market odds and lines. Find reviews for all the news for each league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, college sports, esports, and even golf. BetOnline continues to be the top online resource for all of your sports information for live in-game betting, props, and futures. Head on over to BetOnline today and use your mobile device to join and make your first sports bet. Use our promo code BELIEVE50, that's BELIEVE50, BLEAV 50, to receive your 50% off welcome bonus on your first deposit. That's betonline.ag, betonline.ag. I don't know if I feel good playing this before we talk about the University of Texas playing Georgia in the SEC Championship game, but nevertheless, here we are. All right. Joe, it's SEC Championship week in Texas, who in their first year in the SEC is in this game, and Georgia who's been in this game for the last 4 or 5 years here. I mean, they're always in the SEC Championship game. But Georgia versus Texas, part 2 is underway this weekend in Atlanta. Your thoughts on how this game's going to shake out?
Well, one, you just brought up something that's funny to think about here, where Alabama historically was the team that just, no matter what, when it felt like the season was not up to expectation and they were shaky in various parts, they just always ended up in the SEC Championship game and they would win it. It didn't matter what adversity they were going through. They would find a way to win the SEC Championship game because they knew how to lock in when the lights were on and they were as bright as they were and they needed to play their best game. Now, I'm heavily leaning picking Georgia again. We saw the first time that these two teams faced off, and I feel good about Georgia winning the SEC Championship game. Every statistic, if you look at this matchup, is in favor of Texas. But I still feel off picking Texas, knowing the fact that they have not nearly been as tested as Georgia has. Georgia has been through hell and back with the way that they have played. They have not been playing anywhere near the way that we would have hoped on offense. Carson Beck has been turnover prone. Their defense has been giving up big rushing performances to their opponents. But I don't know how I can bet against Kirby Smart. I know that's such a cliche thing to say, Blake, and I feel like you're going to agree with me. I got to lean on the guy who's been there before and then is going to find a way to win against a team that they already beat this year.
Georgia is number 1 in the country in strength of schedule, and Georgia being 10-2 and then having the game against Georgia Tech, it would be very easy to come in here and pick Texas after they just came off an impressive win and beating Texas A&M. Joe, here's the thing for me about Georgia, and here's the thing about me in this game in take 2. Okay? It is very tough to beat a good team twice. Very tough. It's why it doesn't happen in the NFL a lot. It's why you see teams split. Like, for example, because of the team that I'm currently located closest to, I'm like, yeah, they had bad seasons, but man, they split all of their divisional games. Like, when you play good teams, normally you split those games. Mm-hmm. And so it's always been a football adage that when you play good teams twice, that you normally split. Georgia fans, you should remember this. You played Alabama in an SEC championship game and lost, and then a couple of weeks later, you would win a national championship over that same team. I still don't know what to make of Texas. It's been an entire year, and I don't know what to make of them. Joe, I feel as if people, when we talk about them, people think that I hate them. I don't hate Texas. But, well, actually, me and you were in a group text message today. Yeah, some people actually do believe that I hate them. I just don't trust Quinn Ewers.
Bingo.
I don't. And so it's crazy for me to say that when Carson Beck has been the guy that's been going out there every week, turning the ball over. But, man, I just don't know. One team has been battle-tested week upon week upon week upon week, and they have their flaws. They got to stop dropping the football. Quite simply, Georgia has got to stop dropping the football at the wide receiver position. Their O-line, Joe, let's call it what it is. I love Tate Ratledge, but he's been getting cooked. I'm going to call it the way that I've seen it, okay? Tackle play has been bad. And to be real with you, they continue to find ways to win. Is Trevor Etienne back in this game? I don't know. But here's what I do know. If there's one person in the SEC that can get his team up to win this game, it's the man in red. And it's the bowl cut having, Ruffino and Joe loving Kirby Smart. I don't know what to make of Texas. Like, I see all of the parts. I see that they're first in the country in passing yards allowed. But I don't know if Carson Beck is going to throw 3 more interceptions against you. And let's call it what it is. Joe, the only reason that game is close, is because Carson Beck turned the ball over 3 times. Yeah. And they still beat you by 15 in your house. So here's where I'm at here. Both teams have struggles running the football. Oh, Blake, Texas, we ran the ball against A&M last week. Okay. I don't know if that can happen. I don't know if that can – well, they ran for 104 yards against Vandy. Yeah, okay. So right. I don't know if that can happen here. problem I have, and the problem that I'm having in picking this game, I'm not picking today, by the way. The problem that I have in this game is Georgia can't run the football either. And to be real with you, it's tough for me to get out of my mind what I saw last week from Georgia too. Brother, bottom line, Georgia Tech lined up and punched you in the mouth, and you weren't ready for it. And I know one thing. People can say whatever they want about the University of Texas right now. I know that front seven's going to get off the line of scrimmage and punch you in the mouth. I know you played them. Man, how are you ready? Georgia, can you rebound from the tough season that you had? We're going to find out and see.
You brought up the biggest part for me why I lean Georgia is that you faced off with Carson Beck right when he was in the thick of his just like really bad stretch. Like this was one of his worst performances with the picks that he had, and you still couldn't win. You were handed opportunities in that game, so much so that your fans stopped the game and reversed a call. Things were going so much your way, and the momentum was swinging in your direction to get back in the football game, and you still couldn't do it. Right. I am impressed by Texas's secondary. Jahdae Barron is a phenomenal football player. He is somebody who's going to get drafted highly in the upcoming draft because he is fantastic with the ball in the air. They're the second best team in the country in havoc rate. We've seen what Colin Simmons has done as a true freshman amongst a group of very stellar football players. They were all over Texas A&M. Everything makes sense for them to stymie Georgia's offense in this game. 100% so. But I think that, one, it's promising that Carson Beck is coming off of back-to-back tough opponents. I'm not counting UMass. Games where he's played his best football. He hasn't had ugly, stupid turnovers, and he has stepped up to the plate to help his team win. But I keep coming back to the biggest part about all of this. I don't trust Quinn Ewers. Why would, in the few instances where Quinn Ewers has been tested, he has shit his pants. Vanderbilt, multiple interceptions, was one of your hardest games and one of your best wins.
Last week he had 2 turnovers.
In the red zone, they should have blanked Texas A&M and won that game 34-0. But they couldn't finish because he makes this. They're not even like turnovers where you watch them and you're just like, oh, great, here we go again. It's the play unfolds and it's happening. And then you're thinking to yourself, wait a minute, how does the other team have the ball? We had all this, everything was going our way.
Yeah.
He is one of the most frustrating quarterbacks to watch. I can't support a team that is so good with a quarterback who is so mistake prone. If he looks like crap in the first quarter, put an arch. Put an arch. That plain and simple.
I know you're kind of saying that a little tongue in cheek.
I'm not.
Okay.
Seriously, Sark has literally done it.
Well, he literally did it in this game. Here's the thing. They ran for 29 yards against Georgia the last time. 29. I am interested because in that game, Quinn Ewers got sacked 5 times. Arch got sacked once. And Jalen Walker had 3 sacks. Now, does Kelvin Banks give up 3 sacks again? I don't know. But, man, they had not seen a pass rush like that, and they not seen a D-line like that, and they got abused. Now, I think that they were better this past week versus A&M, but it's a different D-line, man. It's a different type of system. It's a different type of dude. Joe, I mean, that's the part that I bring up that I'm like, man, look, Georgia won, but they created a lot of havoc. And I don't know if, when you've played a team before, it's just like you're not going to get away with the things that you did the first time. Like, you're not. So, man, I got to be real with you. I see avenues for both teams here. Like, really, I do. But I'm going to give you a hot take and push back on one thing that you've said here.
Uh-oh.
I still think Texas's secondary can be had, especially at safety. I don't think that Georgia is the team to do it. I don't. What I do think will be interesting here, they started having success at the end of that game when they went 12 personnel. For people who don't know 12 personnel, it's 2 tight ends, right? And, Joe, they did not have an answer. They were putting Anthony Hill in coverage situations, and he was in trouble. I don't know if I'm Mike Bobo, if I don't run out with the same game plan, we go 12 personnel and we run that thing and we start getting the ball to the big fellas and say, we're gonna make you stop it because you couldn't last time. It's going to be interesting, man. I don't know if Texas is going to be able to run the ball in this game. I don't know if Georgia is going to be able to do it. What's the status of ATN? I don't know. Yeah. But man, Joe, here's what I want to say. I think that they're very much evenly matched teams. Now, last year when we talked about the SEC Championship game against Alabama, I told you it was going to be a 3-point game. Joe, it's going to be a 3-point game. I think it's going to come down. It's going to come down to who is able to run the ball the best at the end of the game here. And whatever team is able to establish the line of scrimmage is going to win this football game. By the way, last year came down to 3 points. All I'm saying here is it's going to be a 3-point game. It's going to be a thriller. And I don't know who to pick yet. Come back on Wednesday, and I'll tell you my pick. So we'll see. All right. Want to go over the Big Ten?
Let's do it.
Joe, the matchup that I predicted in the beginning of this. No, I'm just joking. Joking.
Get out of here.
The Big Ten title game is finally among us, and maybe one of the two teams we expected to be here, Joe, in the beginning of the season. But Oregon versus Penn State in the Big Ten title game. Joe, how do you see this one playing out?
So, first of all, Oregon Duck fans, I am a big supporter of yours. I am picking you to win this football game, but I think that this game is going to be a lot closer than a lot of people anticipate because there are a few minor deficiencies within this Oregon team. We've talked a little bit about their inconsistencies with their run game, or their run defense, rather. I think a couple of those areas are enough for Penn State to get things going on the ground with Katron Allen and Nick Singleton to keep this thing close, to bleed a little bit of clock, to keep Oregon's offense off the field. However, I really think that Mateo Uiagalelei and Derek Harmon and that front going up against a good Penn State offensive line, they're gonna have another one of those big games. Like I think that if Oregon wins this ball game, they're gonna win it off of the backs of their defensive line that have been so freaking productive and so disruptive recently. And also, more importantly, the biggest part of the reason why I really like Oregon in this matchup, Blake, their offensive line has been super reliable since the beginning of the year when we were questioning if they were ready to go. They have clicked together. Johnny Cornelius, former Rhodey Ram, Josh Connerly have been the bookends, and the interior group has improved. I lean Oregon here because we have been able to rely on them being steady on offense and being one of the most balanced, if not the most balanced team in college football.
Joe, these are, from a statistical analysis standpoint, both of these teams are pretty even, right? Yeah. I mean, both are in the top 10 or top 15 in a lot of categories. Joe, I'm just going to lean on what I've been saying about Oregon all year. You got on to me about a month ago about saying that defensive line and front seven was leaking in the run game. I think that you're about to face the best run game that outside of Ashton Genty that you've seen all year in Boise State. I don't think it's remotely close. And Ohio State could not line up and run the ball on you. They haven't been able to all year and run on you the way that effectively that they needed to. I think that Penn State can. Now, the caveat of that is that Ohio State had Megatron Sr. and Megatron Jr. at wideout. Penn State doesn't have that, okay? It's not even in the same talking point. But they do have a Tyler Warren. And it's going to be interesting to see how Andy Kotelnicki in a championship game is able to scheme up and maneuver some things here with the personnel. But, Joe, I just don't know if I can pick Penn State here. I don't, because when I look at Oregon, I feel like I trust Dylan Gabriel more. I feel like I trust that offensive line more. I feel like I trust that running back or that the running game principle more, not running backs. I trust the wide receivers more. I trust the D-line more at Oregon, the linebacking core, the safeties, the corners. And I kind of trust the coaching staff a little bit more. Now, It's interesting because both of these coaches have been in situations where everybody keeps saying, other than Dan landing this year, that neither one of these coaches have been able to get over the hump. Well, one of them's got to. I just think that it's going to come down to which quarterback does Blake Ruffino trust the most. And the one that I trust the most is DeLeone Gabriel.
Yeah.
So many things are even. I look, and I've told you this before, I look at quarterback and head coach. Even if head coach is a wash, which maybe it is, I just think DeLeone Gabriel is going to make more plays than – and look, James Franklin's won a lot of games. I think it's unfair for me to say that it's a wash. But I feel like that if the game's on the line, that DeLeone Gabriel can make the play that Drew Allar might not be able to. So I think that they're even in a lot of different spots. I think they're even in a lot of different ways. Look, man, in Penn State, for what it's worth, they're a yard away from being undefeated. A yard away. And people want to poo-poo on Ohio State because they lost to Michigan. They're still a good football team. But I got to go with DeLeone Gabriel, man, here. I've gone with him a lot this year. I think he's the catalyst, Joe. I think he's been in these situations before, and I think he's going to propel them into a victory here.
So you brought up the Ohio State game, and I think that I'm not using common opponents to build my argument, but the fact that we saw Penn State would hurt them, inability to finish drives, inability to record splash plays from your receivers, I don't think that suits you very well in a matchup like this. And look, there's a lot of statistics that they're very evenly matched if we're just talking like general EPA and how they square off. Like they're both in the top 20 in most categories, offense and defense. But from just the film perspective and in what we've seen, if this game does come down to, and it's close like we're talking about, 2 minutes to go, just like the Ohio State game, there's not much time left on the clock. Each team gets a drive. DeLeone Gabriel goes down, puts points on the board. Drew Allar, I can't say the same thing. Drew Allar, unlike Will Howard, Will Howard had unbelievable receivers to turn to. Who the heck? You can't orchestrate a 2-minute drive with Tyler Warren and Nick Singleton solely. You got to be able to find some receivers.
Joe,
you got to be able to do something there.
You better not doubt Tyler Warren.
Oh no, I'm not. I'm a big Tyler Warren fan. He's one of my top tight ends.
He's the best tight end in college football.
Yeah, but if you need to put up 75 yards to go on a drive, you're not going to throw the ball every single time you tight end. That's not getting you. Well, then you're losing the football game. You're not going to get down the field quick enough.
What's the difference of me throwing it to Tyler Warren every play than me throwing it to Gronk every play if I'm Tom Brady?
Okay, if you're trying to orchestrate a drive and everybody knows
saw the greatest quarterback of all time do it to a tight end. Don't
Drew
say
Allar's not Tom Brady.
Okay,
I get it. NFL.
You said that you can't do it with a tight end. Your premise.
I'm being
you can't do it with a tight end. You can't do it with a tight end.
I'm being a little cut and dry with that, but what I'm trying to say here is that like you're in a particular drive, you got to be able to find your receivers on the outside. You got to be able to pick up a 20-yard gain. You can't just keep hitting Tyler Warren.
Well, what worries me if I'm Penn State, the best team that you play clearly was Ohio State here. And Oregon fans, you need to listen. Drew, the leading rusher for Penn State against Ohio State was Tyler Warren, the tight end, 3 carries, 47 yards. Drew Allar was the second leading rushing guy with 10 carries and 31 yards. They did not and could not and would not run the football. They couldn't. So there comes a part where they've run the ball on everybody in the country besides Ohio State. And if I'm Oregon, I'm just sitting there saying like, hey, man, we've been a little leaky. But, Joe, Penn State's got to prove that they can line up and run the football in Oregon. They do. You can't have a tight end.
They should be able to.
I mean, Joe, we're talking about a tight end and a statue at quarterback that were the leading rushers against Ohio State.
I wouldn't call Drew Allar a statue. He's a pretty good athlete.
Hold on one second, Joe. Hey, Meemaw. My Meemaw's running past me. She's beating Drew Allar in a race.
Stop. He's a phenomenal. He's a very good athlete. Don't go down this.
But you know what I'm trying to say.
I know. You
okay.
Yes. Okay.
I mean, Drew Allar's not going to beat you with his wheels. Man, listen, I don't know if Penn State's ready for this. I don't.
Well, so that's the biggest part is like, if I'm picking between these two coaches, this is the last part for me. Between these two coaches, Dan Lanning's got the momentum. He got over the hump beating Ohio State. James Franklin still can't do it.
I mean, he has won the conference before. We got to.
Did they beat Wisconsin though? They didn't beat like a real Big Ten
but they beat
team.
Ohio State to get there.
They did, but that was the one time that he's beaten them.
Dan Lanning's never won a conference. Don't act like that James has never won a conference. Don't do that to Franklin. Like
one's much younger and is an up and comer. The other has given us failures plenty of times.
Sounds good, but I get what you're saying. But let's not act like James Franklin hasn't. I mean, Joe, that experience may lead him into a win here. Hold on. Let's not act like that Dan Lanning didn't have some very questionable calls against Ohio State. We don't point him out because of the win against Ohio State, and he did last year too. I mean, like, there are some question marks on both.
There are question marks, but I mean, if I pick someone to trust, I'm
with you. I'm going to take Dan Lanning too.
Yeah.
All right. You want to get to the ACC championship game here? We might have to punt on the.
Yeah, we're gonna. It sounds like Big 12's gonna get punted to Wednesday or tomorrow. We might tape it tomorrow.
Yeah, we need to tape it tomorrow. All right. So, Joe, the ACC championship game, which, boy, I hate that I have to say this. Miami, I hate you. I hate you because I picked you to be in this game, and you're not there. But SMU versus Clemson in the ACC championship game, Joe, how do you see this one playing out?
I was pretty stunned when I was digging into the stats here to discover the potential huge advantage that SMU is going to have going up against this Clemson team. Now, I think this game, another matchup that will likely be close, but SMU has been super dangerous through the air. They have been super dangerous on defense. They have been quietly one of the best defenses in the country, albeit not going up against like a super hard schedule. Clemson's performance against South Carolina last week makes me feel that they are built and able to go toe-to-toe with a team like SMU. And they've just got the NFL premier athletes on their defensive line, at linebacker, in their defensive backfield. And if Klubnik plays the way that he did and they can produce just a little bit more in the run game, that they should be able to win this football game. But what gives me pause is that SMU has been tremendously hot. We haven't given them a ton of love because they haven't exactly had premier ranked matchups that have allowed us to go under the microscope and talk about them. But Kevin Jennings, this passing attack, shout out to Derek King, who's the quarterback coach there, who's been leading the production here for this SMU team. They have the ability to spread out Clemson and to put up points in bunches because we have at the same time seen Clemson have a lot of shakiness on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah. See, I got to push back on the biggest advantage in the game here. Clemson has the biggest advantage.
What is that?
SMU secondary is not good at all. And if I know that K. Klubnik can do what he did to a secondary in the SEC that I just saw him do, and Joe, it's not like we're talking about the SEC's mid-level secondary. This secondary for South Carolina got dudes on it.
They're weak at corner and they've got really good safeties. But they're better. But they're better than what SMU has. Yeah.
Oh, are they? Okay. SMU is 85th in the country in passing yards allowed. So when I look at SMU, I say to myself, look, everything that you've done this year. By the way, when we previewed SMU, they were me and your dark horse to make the ACC championship game.
Yeah.
It's not as if that we thought that that SMU would just come out of the ether. We both predicted. By the way, both of us had them finishing third in the ACC in the beginning of the year. So it's not as if that me and you don't trust or believe in SMU. But I promise you, though, this Clemson offense that has had struggles, Joe, they're offensively, they can throw the ball around. They can move the ball on you. And Joe, I got to be real with you here. I don't know if SMU is going to be able – I can't believe I'm about to say this. I don't know if they're going to be able to slow – that secondary can slow down this passing attack. They are that bad. They have been that bad. They have allowed bad teams to move the ball on them through the air. I know that everybody wants to dunk on Dabo. I get it. But, man, I don't know if I think Clemson's got better overall athletes up front on both lines of scrimmage. I do think that they have the better secondary, and I do think that they have the better linebacking core. Now, you can make individualized like Robinson. You can say that he's a premier guy. But, Joe, that secondary's been getting cooked by mid-level opponents. Cooked.
Okay. Where I agree with you, SMU's offensive line has not been steady for them. They're 82nd in havoc rate allowed, meaning tackles for loss, sacks they've given up.
It's not going to bode well.
It's not going to bode well. But this season, SMU has been extremely disruptive. They're 17th in havoc rate. They've got 37 sacks in the season. Jafari Harvey, Isaiah Smith, Elijah Roberts. They have a number of different guys that have registered over 4 sacks. They've got 5 different guys that have over 4 sacks this season. So I don't think that this Clemson offensive line has been overhyped. Coming into the year, Trey Zune, Blake Miller were supposed to be really good tackles, and they have not lived up to that expectation. I believe that they're going to be able to get home. I think that is what could win SMU the football game, is that diverse group, and that is what has helped them survive despite not having a very consistent secondary, giving up the passing yards that they've allowed. So if they can get home and they can be disruptive up the middle and along their defensive line, that's where I lean SMU in this situation. This is another one that I think is going to be super close. Like I don't see a de facto answer, but I lean slightly SMU at this current moment.
I know that Klubnik got out of a lot of bad situations, but I'm coming off a Clemson game against South Carolina where they allowed a sack. And by the way, it's not as if they allowed a sack. I mean, Joe, they sent an all-out blitz. I mean, Kennard, who may be the best edge rusher or arguably one of the best edge rushers in the SEC, couldn't get home effectively enough. And then the freshman DN. I want to say it's not Carlton.
Dylan Stewart.
Dylan Stewart, number 6, who couldn't get home. I'm thinking to myself, Joe, they were good enough last week. They're not facing dudes like that this week. They're not. Now, what you could say is maybe having a more of an athlete at quarterback. We saw what Sellers did to them last week. I'm with you. But, man, Joe, I got to disagree. I think Clemson's going to go in there and torch that secondary. I think I'm just in a place where I need to see SMU come into the ACC and win this thing. Now, you know I love Rhett Lashley.
Yeah.
Love him to death. And would tell him this if I had to. If you don't hold on to the football in this game and make this game close, I don't know how much of a shot they have. I really don't. That secondary is about to get cooked, brother. It's going to get bad. So when I look at SMU too, there's a lot of things that they do well that would really worry me if I'm Clemson. Okay? They can run the ball effectively. They can move the ball effectively. Their run defense has been good. Okay? They're 4th in the country in run defense. So I know that they've had areas. I know that they've been good in a lot of areas. I'm not saying that this is going to be bad in the sense of that they're blown out. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is Klubnik has progressed. Like he's vehemently progressed. And so I just think that it's such a massive advantage for Clemson here that I don't know, man. Maybe it's a 3 to 7 point game. That's where I would have it.
Right.
But I just think when Klubnik's got to have the play, I don't think that this secondary, who's been anemic all year, is going to be able to give it up.
Klubnik's been great down the stretch. Kevin Jennings has also been great. You bring up something that maybe sways me back to Clemson now that I'm saying this out loud. Clemson's been tested more than SMU has. And being tested is one of the most important things, in my opinion, in college football that doesn't get talked about enough. Forget the crap strength schedule. That's not what I'm getting at here. Just opportunities where you faced adversity. How did you play in those situations? And Clemson gets punched in the mouth against Georgia. They reset, they recalibrate, they go on a tear. They lose to Louisville, which was an embarrassing loss.
Yeah.
They try to finish the season as strong as they can. And they have South Carolina, one of the hottest teams in the country, on the ropes to the point where they were going to win it if it wasn't for that turnover that they had late on that final drive. What game am I supposed to point to that is like a really difficult challenge that SMU overcame? Is it Duke, who they should have lost because they turned the ball over a ridiculous amount of times? Is it Pitt, who was unjustifiably ranked as high as they were? Is it Louisville, who petered out at the end of the season? I don't see a spot here that really gives me the context to believe that SMU has what it takes to win in a game like this. And it's not me trying to be like super negative and saying like SMU's they're effed, they can't win this football game. It's part of the reality of a former G5 team in their first ever season getting to the ACC Championship game, stepping into a matchup, everybody being all hyped up and thinking like, wow, this would be so cool. And then waiting on the other side is Dabo Swinney, who's won a national championship, gets his guys ready. They win the football game. Sorry, 2 in multiple ACC championship games and ran the damn conference.
He's won like 4 or 5 of those, 6 of those.
As much as I rag on Dabo, if there is a coach that gets his team ready for this matchup, it's Dabo.
I ain't gonna say that. Rhett's gonna have his boys ready to play. But Joe, here's another problem. They have had issues, meaning SMU, running the football against mid-level opponents. Right? Like, I mean, mid-level ACC opponents. This is by far the best D-line in front 7 that you have seen. Like,
well, but the problem is though is that Clemson's gotten ran all over though in the in stretches of the season.
You say that, but then Raheem Sanders can't get over 3.5 yards a carry. But okay, so who ran on him?
Well,
hold on. Lenore Sellers went full Cam Newton in a game.
Yeah.
Okay, he had 166 yards. Joe, I mean, arguably the best back in the SEC couldn't get going.
But Kevin Jennings is not I'm not saying it's Lenore Sellers, but he's also a really good athlete that's hard to tackle.
Not ignoring that. Not ignoring that. Okay? But he's been that way against other opponents too. Right? Like he's been that way against lesser opponents. Let's be real about Sellers in one thing. He had 2 massive 35-yard runs for touchdowns, or 1 for a touchdown. The dude went off. I think he's playing I'm not going down that rabbit hole, okay? But I look at this in this situation and say, you're right. Russell can go off. He's got to scramble to do it, and I'm with you. Still does not stop them getting torched in their secondary. Listen, man, you better be ready for a 3-loss Clemson to get automatic bye. It's going down. I promise you, Joe, it's the most confident of it. You know I'm going to say this, and this is going to be the one game that I lose, okay? It's the most confident of bowl week that I am. I mean, of championship week than I am. I think Clemson's going to get it done, and they're going to be in the playoff.
All right. You know what? Now that we've talked this through, I think Clemson's going to win too.
I just changed your mind?
No. This was one of those previews where we were talking it through, and I didn't really have a clean pick. You didn't sway me.
No.
Stop it.
Hold on.
Didn't sway me.
The replay would say that, now that you have said that, it makes.
Yeah, but while you were talking, I was looking some things up.
No, that's bullshit. You heard my fantastic argument and you changed your pick.
No. I'm not giving you that.
We got 4 minutes here. Let's get to this last thing. Joe, big news in the portal today. Quarterback from Liberty, Caden Salter, went to the portal. Your quick thoughts here.
Yeah, I think that what Caden Salter was for what Cam Ward was for Miami this past year is what I think that Caden Salter could be for another program. The obvious blatant rumor is that he's going to end up at Auburn. His former coach, Hugh Freeze, tried to get him to come last year. I think he should go to Auburn. And I think that with the receiving core that they could develop and to build with Salter delivering the football to them, we could see a lower level team quarterback that is supremely talented step into an opportunity to air things out and put up crazy stats. I think Salter is going to go down at the end of the year. We're going to be saying like, damn, I can't believe that he did what he did the season that he had, because he is a supremely gifted athlete that has been hidden and tucked away by playing at Liberty.
Got decimated last year, okay, from the portal was Liberty. And Caden did not have the dudes that he had the year before, and he drastically paid for it. He was massively running for his life. Joe, be honest with you, I saw a lot of guys lost. You got to go watch these Liberty games. The dude is making high-level NFL throws. High-level. Scrambling and on the run making high-level throws. Dude, it's the most ridiculous thing that I've ever seen. And then he'd have a drop, or the receiver ran a wrong route, and he's playing with a lot of young guys, and then the running game can't get going. Then he tries to press. Then he tries to run, and he's taking a beating. Joe, I've seen another kid go in the portal, okay, that can run and throw like this. I know him personally. I'm not saying that he's him, but I'm taking a flyer on this kid, man. I think he's going to be the best, arguably the best portal quarterback. So we'll see. Am I breaking up here?
Just a tiny bit, but you're good.
Okay.
But I agree with you. He's a great player.
We'll see y'all soon, man. Y'all have a good night. Peace.